Those guys, those murderers, those killers are on trial again. Now, the federal murder hate crimes charge. And there's a reason why this is important. I know some people have pushed back and said, well, why do we need to do this again? They've already been convicted. I will explain that to you. New evidence has been presented showing the insane racism of the three men who killed Ahmaud Arbery. The three white men who were convicted of murdering Ahmaud Arbery, a black jogger whose shooting death in 2020 sparked protest and calls for racial justice, had histories of making racist comments and slurs in text messages, according to the federal prosecutor on Monday. Now, here's why this is important. During the first trial, a lot of that information was not allowed. It was considered to be prejudicial. The probative value was there, but the prejudicial value was too much. However, in a case like this, when you are literally proving that the entire reason they killed Ahmaud Arbery was because of their racism or their hate of an immutable quality, that then becomes presented evidence in the case. So new evidence has now been presented. Bernstein said there will be testimony that Greg McMichael, a former police officer and district attorney's office investigator, ranted about black people being nothing but trouble and posted memes on social media that supported it, suggesting that it's better to have a loaded gun than to call the police. Okay, that's important because that's exactly what they did here. They took justice, as they called it, into their own hands, but it was in fact criminal. Additionally, the prosecutor said the third defendant, remember this guy, William Roddy Bryan, who was recording the entire matter because they were going to use the recording as kicks later, had also used the N-word and other slurs. In one instance, after learning his daughter was dating a black man, she said Bryan commented that his daughter has her an N-word now. That's according to the Associated Press. All right, let's put up their pictures. All three of these monsters, look at them. They represent a larger demographic in this country. You know, America is a very beautiful and ugly place at the same time. A multiracial jury was seated in the federal hate crimes trial of the three men, as defense attorneys admitted their clients had used offensive language and opinions about black people. That's what they call it. Oh, it's not racist, it's just offensive. But the defense attorneys insisted the three men's pursuit of the 25-year-old was prompted by honest, though erroneous suspicion that he committed crimes, not solely based on his race, the Associated Press reported, okay? Let me read a quote from one of the defense attorneys, okay? I'm not going to ask you to like Travis McMichael. I'm not going to ask you to decide that he done nothing wrong. But I am going to ask you to return a verdict of not guilty to this indictment. What in the hell kind of statement is that from an attorney? Okay, McMichael, along with his father, Greg McMichael, chased Arbery in their pickup truck after he ran past their Brunswick, Georgia home. We all know when that happened in 2020. The federal proceeding, which will examine whether race was a factor in the killing, begins 1 month after the three men were sentenced to life in prison in a separate murder trial in Georgia state court. A jury there found the trio guilty of felony murder and other charges in connection to the death of Mr. Arbery. Okay, so let me remind everyone why this is important, okay? Hate violence is intentionally, specifically targeted at individuals because of their personal, immutable characteristics. They are very personal crimes with very emotional and psychological impacts on the victim and the victim's community. Here's why you prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. One, ultimate justice. This is called prosecuting them to the fullest extent of the law. They deserve that. Number two, societal messaging. You know, we prosecute criminals not only to punish them, but to also send a message to society at large. Your racism will be dealt with in a very different way in this country. It will be dealt with in the way we choose based on your horrific reason for killing someone. Number 3, it creates case law. There will be evidence presented here that will in fact create precedent. That's important for the future prosecution of hate crimes under the federal statute in America. Adrienne, there's pushback. People are saying, well, he's already been found guilty, or they have already been found guilty. This is now overkill. What are your thoughts on that statement?
I don't think this is overkill whatsoever, because if they're serving their life sentences or 30-year sentences in Brian's case with the possibility of parole, you know what? It just speaks to the fact that at least one of them could be out in 30 years, which is an absolute possibility. And if they are enjoying a life of luxury in federal prison as opposed to going to Georgia State prison, they're also going to essentially have a nicer time. And that was something that the Arbery family was not okay with. They weren't okay with them taking in and accepting a plea deal that would essentially let them stay in federal court and potentially just give them more opportunity to enjoy the rest of their life as opposed to actually suffering consequences. And so having this trial come to pass, where we are essentially going to be looking at what behavior is inherently racist, and the fact that Ahmaud Arbery is Black, and that was a core key tenet. What essentially we're going to be doing is testing society and saying, is it ready to acknowledge its own racism? Because that is what I think that the defendants are hoping, that society is willing to say, that even if we do use the N-word liberally, or even if we're just trying to quote unquote protect our neighborhood, that doesn't mean you're racist. And so that's why they're out here gambling, hoping that that jury will not convict them.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. We all know that if a young white male was jogging through that community, this would not have happened to him. Obviously, the catalyst was the race of this individual who is now dead, Mr. Ahmaud Arbery.